Gaia presents Gaiasphere Event Center. James Colhoun.
Welcome. Welcome. Welcome to Emersion 2025. This is our premier transformation event. And who here this weekend is ready to transcend to a higher state of consciousness? Yeah, I love it. This is the time. This is the place. We are the people. And this moment right now is our opportunity. Bless you. Who here, on the other hand, was dragged here by a loved one? They saw that that crystal in the foyer, and they're like, what did that guy just say? Anybody? You're loved. We love you. We've been there before. I've been there before. You see, the path to elevating frequency and vibration is a little bit making popcorn, a little bit like making popcorn. You start out firm, hard, tough. This is the lower vibrational states of jealousy, fear, anger, hatred, separation. And as you become popped, you become lighter, brighter, fluffier, tastier even. And we ascend to these states of love, compassion, empathy, unity, and oneness. Now, I must warn you, especially for that one lady that put her hand up, this is a one-way journey. You cannot go back to being a harder version of yourself, a more closed-off version of yourself. Once you start this process and it continues to unfold, there's no going back. Who understands that? Yeah? So at Gaia, our mission is to create a transformational network that empowers a global conscious community. And so you, literally being right here, right now, is us seeing our mission come to life. So thank you. And your contribution with your energy, your attention, even purchasing a ticket, being a Gaia member, being a Gaia Plus member, to those who are streaming, helps support this organization create incredible content in French, Spanish, German, and English to help wake more people up and make them brighter, wider, fluffier, tastier versions of themselves. So without you, this is impossible. And I also want to acknowledge that there is hundreds of people behind the scenes here that make these events possible and all the content on a weekly basis. I'm in the trenches with them on a day-to-day basis, and their dedication is unmatched. They are truly here to serve you and this movement of awakening. So I'd like if in a moment we could give them a huge round of applause. And for any Gaia members and team that are here, let's give our members a round of applause. Let's make this like beautiful love circle. Is that okay? Isn't that cute? Isn't that cute? Feels like we're throwing flowers at each other. I love that. So, you might not know this unless you're seeing somebody next to you with a headset on, but I'm currently being dubbed live into Spanish. We have members in over 185 different countries around the world. And this weekend alone, we will have tens of thousands of different members tuning in from locations all across the globe. And so right now, if you could turn around, and there's a camera at the back with a red light on it. And if we could wave hello to all of the members that are tuning in. Good morning. And if you're in Australia, which is my native country, go to bed. What are you doing? If you're in Europe, welcome. You're probably enjoying a cup of tea in the evening. And you'll see some of the programming, not all of it. But this will be available to members on the Gaia Plus platform for replay, so don't fear. I'm about to bring out our first guest, and he's going to be helping us put into action a lot of what we learn on Gaia. The impetus of these in-person events is for us to take the knowledge of the platform and start to put it into action. Because it's through action that we start to experience what it feels like to transform, what it feels like to be this lighter, brighter, fluffier, more tastier version of ourselves. And so these events are about not only knowledge acclimation, but also about putting that into action. And our first guest is going to help us do that. And I would like to ask of you that throughout the weekend, whenever we roll a cute little video and they put the person's name up and it says it in this beautiful voice, if you could get up off your chairs and give a huge round of applause. One, because it's going to help you move, because you're going to be sitting down most of the day, so that's good, which helps you remember more things, because the more active you are, the more your brain remembers. But also it makes people feel great. And I think that's an important thing for us to do for these incredible teachers. So, without further ado, thank you so much for your attention and your presence. Thank you to all of those tuning in live, again, for your attention and presence. We live in an attention economy. And if you haven't noticed, out there in the quote-unquote unreal world, their model for getting your attention is fear-based, right? We've seen it. Death, pain, fire, destruction, distraction, division. They predicate on this energy. And this is not the nature of reality of the human species and of consciousness. It is the opposite. And so right here in this room, with this platform, we are creating a positive shift for a new timeline for humanity, and you are co-creating that with us. So thank you very much. We're going to roll this video, and you're going to get up, and you're going to blow the roof off for our first guest. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Gaia presents Gaia Event Center Immersion Conference. Dr. Espen Wold-Jensen.
Good morning. Good morning, friends, family, and wherever you're watching from all over the world. It's so great to be with you. My name is Espen. I have the privilege of opening up this amazing gathering that we have for the next 2 days. And it's my intention to not only provide you with some knowledge today that we can take and implement into our lives, but also to do some breathing with you, to do some experience with you, to have the experience of getting to know this power of breath, this spirit that lives within, and to do so in a way where we can actually take away some tangible tools so we can use in our lives as well. So for those of you who don't know me, as I mentioned, my name is Espen. I have the privilege of guiding you for the next 90 minutes. And I'd like to start by asking if you would take a moment, close your eyes, wherever you're watching from around the world, just take a moment to close your eyes. And let's start by setting an intention for this next 90 minutes that we have together. So as we breathe in, we're aware that we're breathing in. And as we breathe out, we're aware that we're breathing out. As we breathe in, we feel the inhale. And as we breathe out, relax and feel the exhale. So setting a positive, loving intention, something perhaps that you'd like to receive into your life, something you'd like to let go of, perhaps. As you breathe into this intention, feel it in every cell, organ, and tissue of your body and being. And as you breathe out, let go of the attachment, because it's already yours. One more time, breathing in. And breathing out. Excellent. When you're ready, open up your eyes. It's an honor to be here. I've just flown in from Australia, down under. I'm actually born and raised in Norway. I'll tell you a little story later. But I've been in Australia for the last 20 years, and we've just had a massive cyclone that has wreaked havoc on the southeast parts of Australia. In fact, hundreds and hundreds of homes have been affected, torn apart. Many, many thousands of homes are without power. I still don't have power. It's been 2 weeks. I spent the last, before I flew over here, the last 4 days on my knees, cleaning through the floods and the water that had come through, trying to keep the mold at bay. And I had to remove about 10 trees just to get out of my house and down the driveway. But as Spirit would have it, I was not going to let anything get in the way of being here today. So I want to say a very special thank you for having us. Thank you. And if you're watching from Australia, bless, and God bless everybody that's joining us here. And of course, not just Australia, but different parts of the world. We've seen crazy things happening in California and other parts of the world. So I want to take this moment to send some blessings out to everybody that might not have the things that we want best to have. Okay? Cool. So a couple of things. Let's get the basics out of the way. I talk a little bit fast. Okay? My brain works on all cylinders. So if I talk fast, just listen faster. And I do have a bit of a weird accent. It's a mix between this Scandinavian Viking old accent and kind of Australian. So not much I can do with that, so just have to live with that. And my intention for you, as I mentioned before, is that we leave here today, not just with information, transformation, but we have some tangible tools that we can deploy in our life. And as we go through it as well, tune in to your intuition. You know, we can hear great things and we can see great things and we can learn great things. But you know, when you get that feeling in your being, when you feel that it's true, we call it truth bumps, right? Or goosebumps. I like truth bumps or spirit bumps. When spirit speaks through you, feel free to take a note. Because I feel like as we go through life, the superpower of intuition has been awakened more and more within us. And it gives us the opportunity to attune to that. So you've got pen and paper here if you're in the room. If you're watching us from home, grab your pen and paper and get ready. I'm pretty confident that there are some things that I'll say that you might want to take a note on as well. So as you feel these things, do take the opportunity to take some notes. And let's see how we can apply it. So firstly, my topic for today is called the quantum leap. How we can activate our superhuman faculties through the power of our breath. It's interesting when you look at it. I'm a educator by trade. I used to teach in schools, also primary healthcare physician. So as I went through life, I realized that, well, my belief is that we could do with a bit of an upgrade to our education system. Would you agree? Right. And what about our healthcare system? Yeah? Well, I say we don't really have a healthcare system, we have a sick care system. Okay? No disregard, no disrespect, but we have to come to terms with the fact that sometimes we believe that we have a system that will improve our health. Well, it's there to avoid and or deal with sickness, not necessarily to increase energy frequency and vibration in the body and being. And so what we're doing is, ladies and gentlemen, not just learning, but we also have to unlearn some things. Okay, we have to let go of some thoughts, patterns, indoctrinations, beliefs, and programs that we believe to be true. So is it okay with you if I stretch you today, mentally? Is that okay? Okay, in fact, I'm going to trigger the shit out of you today. Yes. And you're welcome. You're welcome. Growth happens outside of the comfort zone. Okay, but I also want to say there's some things, in fact, a lot of things that I don't know. I don't think we become wise until we recognize how much we don't know. And so it's okay with you. I'm going to keep an open mind. Are you open to that as well? I'll keep an open mind together today. If you're watching at home, again, same thing. Let's keep an open mind and let's go through it. And you know, in the evolution of human species, we see that evolution takes a very long time, right? But there comes a time in the evolution of our species, of every species, where there is such a thing as a quantum leap, where there is a sudden change, where as a species, for us as humanity, there is a giant leap in the evolution of consciousness. I personally do believe, and I feel the truth bumps as I share this with you, that this is the time that we're living in right now. That we're living in the time of the Great Awakening, where humanity ascends from lower vibrations of fear and constriction, of sickness and poverty and separation, into a higher state of consciousness, simply just aligning back home to the truth of our own ontological being, which is love and light. And this is the transition that we're living in. This is my belief. And of course, what we believe, we will achieve. So this is a chosen belief. And as I go through life and as I see these things, I choose to reprogram my mind to focus on the things that I believe is already unfolding. And this is the quantum leap. And so just to be clear, what we're experiencing right now may not take thousands of years. It could happen like that. Is it okay to believe that we can enter a high state of consciousness like that? Is that okay with you guys? Choose to borrow that belief, because we know time as an aspect of the fourth dimension is not necessarily real. It's certainly not real for the soul. It's real for the body and the mind, or at least for the body, which is subject to time, because the third dimension is, that of lower than the fourth dimension, which is time. or a key aspect of time. But our spirit, the essence of our consciousness and our divine nature, is not bound by space or time. So I'd like to have that conversation with you from that higher perspective so that we can not only see ourselves, having a human experience, but also recognize and remember who we are. So I'd like to start with a question. And this question has two choices. You can choose from scenario 1 or scenario 2. I want to point out neither of these choices are right or wrong. So you couldn't stuff this up even if you tried. So if you're watching from home, I'd like you to join in. We're going to do just the same unless you're driving, which you shouldn't be doing at the moment. Be as present as you can. But we're going to go on a journey within. I always say we don't have to go without when we go within. It's an interesting concept to explore, isn't it? How we've externalized so much of the inner greatness that we have around us rather than really bringing the attention back within. So we're going to ask ourselves a question. It's in fact one of the most commonly asked questions in the history of philosophy, which pertains to the question, who am I? And again, no right or wrong answer. It's simply a matter of what you believe. Okay? So let's do this if you can. Uncross your legs, shuffle your meat back in your seat. Sit up nice and tall. Take this moment to close your eyes. Take this moment to close your eyes. And again, as you breathe in, you're aware that you're breathing in. And as you breathe out, you're aware that you're breathing out. And as you breathe in, you're aware that that's the inhale. And as you breathe out, you're aware that that's the exhale. And as you're sitting up tall with your eyes closed, your shoulders back, your chest and your chin up, your heart open, and you're observing the inhale versus the exhale, you're practicing the very first principle the Buddha ever taught on the topic of meditation, the Anapana, the inhale versus the exhale. And as such, you are meditating. And in this state, with your eyes closed and your spine straight and perhaps an open, loving heart, I'm going to present you with two possible scenarios. Neither is right or wrong. It is simply a matter of what you believe. Let's begin. Scenario 1 is for you if you believe that you are only made up of flesh and bone. That means scenario number 1 is for you if you believe that the only thing that exists is the material world, the world of matter, the things that we can touch and feel and see, and that is it. That is scenario number 1. Scenario number 2 is for you if you believe that perhaps inside of you there is a spirit or a soul, some sort of energy, some sort of consciousness. Scenario 2 is for you if you believe that there is more to you than just the physical parts. When you're ready, take a breath into your heart. Exhale. If scenario number 1 is what you believe, and you believe that the only thing that exists is the physical bits, then raise your hand now. If scenario number 2 is what you believe, and you believe there's more to you, perhaps a spirit or a soul, some sort of consciousness, then do raise your hand now. If you raised your hand up, keep your hand up. Take a moment just to feel what this belief means to you in your life. Everyone at home as well. And if you've got your hand up, keep your hand up, and go ahead and open up your eyes. And have a good look around the room. And if you're watching us from home, do the same thing. Thank you very much. Now, what did we witness? Well, what we witnessed is what we call a core belief. As I said before, what we believe, we will achieve. The great Dr. Bruce Lipton has shared this with us as the founder of epigenetics when he shared that every cell, organ, and tissue in your body and being is listening to what you believe. So we have to, let me rephrase, we don't have to, we get to pay attention to what we're paying attention to. We get to focus on what we're focusing on. We get to observe our beliefs and ask the question, is this a belief that is going to serve me in my awakening process, in my healing process? And so, ladies and gentlemen, you'd note that at least 95+%, if not more, of this room went up for scenario number 2. So if you're watching at home, if you're in this room, I'd like you to just grab your pen and paper and write down. This is a very interactive workshop. I want you to give you some real tools here. So grab your pen and paper and write down what you call this thing. Some people call it consciousness. Some people call it spirit. Some people call it God. Some people call it soul. Some people call it energy. If you want to keep it purely scientific and non-spiritual, you're welcome to simply call it the unified field or the quantum field. This is the scientific name for it that I'll share with you a little bit later. So go ahead and write down, and if you're at home, if you don't have pen and paper, this is the moment where you grab your phone and type this in your phone, right? And right before that word, I'd like you to go to the left and write the two words, I am. I am that I am. And so when you write I am spirit, I am soul, I am consciousness, it brings you a deeper level of, if I may, inner standing. Not understanding. You're not standing under a concept. You're inner standing. You're making it part of your beingness, that which you are. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I've done this with tens of thousands of people. I know that you know who you are. I know that you have begun to remember. And some of you have been remembering for a long time. But others are just starting the awakening process of coming home. And I think that is the key. We're not going anywhere. We're coming home. We're coming home to the essence of our own divine nature. And as you write I am and what you wrote, as I said, I know that you know. You're here, you're doing the work, and if you're watching from home, you're doing this work that many people perhaps could be and should be doing, but you're doing it because you've remembered. So I know that you know. I'm here to not preach to you that you know. I'm here to show you how. Would it be fair to say that we can talk nutrition all day, but unless you change the way you eat, nothing's going to change? Yes, no? Yes? Would it be fair to say that we can talk meditation all day, but unless you sit and you're in stillness and you're with awareness of breath, and not much is going to change? So theory and action are two different things. When I discovered the chakra system, which I'll talk about later, which is a major part of my model, the energy centers, I knew about the chakras, but I was not practicing any of this at all. And so this is really where we go from theory to action, from, yeah, I get it, but now I start to live this way. Okay? So let's lean in and let's look at this belief of who we are, such as I am spirit, I am soul, I am more than just the body, and look at the science behind it as well. And this is something that really has intrigued me for the last 20 years. I wanted to really find the science of it, because I know that spirituality has been teaching this for thousands of years. And it seems interesting, though, for me as a researcher, as a physician, I was really stuck in my head for a long time. I love the quote by Tony Robbins, when you're in your head, you're dead. And it's kind of making that transition from the head to the heart. And what a long and what a beautiful journey. But it just reminded me of what I had forgotten as I got caught up in the materialistic world. So Plato said something quite profound. He said, we have a body, we have a mind, we have a soul. The body must be directed by the mind, and the mind must be guided by the soul. I believe the soul stands for the state of unconditional love. That's a great one if you're taking notes. State of unconditional love. And I want to talk about the science behind this spirit, this soul, this consciousness, because my hypothesis, my belief is that we are spirit infused. We are consciousness having a human experience, not the other way around. It's as if I'm in this world, but I'm not just of this world. Does that make sense? And so as we go through this experience, I wanted to know the science. And so I started looking into quantum mechanics or quantum physics. I know many of you are quite familiar. And so I wanted to really grasp the science here. And I wanted to know and understand what science says about the true nature of reality. And as I went on this journey and I started exploring, I realized that science and spirituality is one and the same thing. It depends on which aspect of science you look at. If you look at Newtonian physics, of course, studying that more of the matter, the body, because we are a body too, would you agree? I mean, I have a right hand, I have a left hand. Don't tell me that I'm not also part physical. Like, I know that I'm bound by gravity. I'm bound by the laws of physics to some degree. We're starting to bend those rules and those laws now, though, because we're starting to remember what we knew many, many thousands of years ago. So Max Planck became, as you might know, the founder of quantum theory when he quantified and provided evidence for a quote-unquote field of divine intelligence that exists within all things. And this was proven in 1918 when he won this Nobel Prize, and is still true today in 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, both spirit and science says the same thing. It says that we are divine beings having a temporary human experience. So let's say, for instance, that your body lasts 120 years. Many will last longer, some shorter. I get it. But let's say that the body lasts 120 years. Here's a pop quiz question for you. Do you think your spirit or your soul will die when your body dies? Yes, no? No? I think no. I think the answer is no. But I may be wrong. But I have chosen to believe that I'm the eternal embodied in temporary time. Okay? I'm the eternal embodied in temporary time. And so if that's who I am, the higher self, if you will, the spirit, the soul, and there's many names for it. We're not going to create any dogma here. There's going to be no separation here. There's about 4,200 religions so far that we know of, and many of them think that they're right and the other ones are wrong. So this is not a dogmatic separation type platform. This is a unity-based platform. Everyone is welcome here. Is that okay with you? So it doesn't matter if you're an atheist or a Christian or a Buddhist or anything in between. Everyone is welcome here. As long as it's a beautiful path of love to God, then it's beautiful as far as I'm concerned. So Max Planck would prove this over 100 years ago, still true to this day, that we are indeed consciousness having this temporary human experience. And it just so seems, we call it the matrix, that we're really only seeing a tiny, tiny percentage of what really exists in this time and space, which I'll get to also in a moment. So I'm going to share a slide with you now. This is for those of you who are analytical, and those of you who really want to double down on the science, but I don't want you to get caught up in this slide, okay? Because some people go, oh my gosh, it's too complex. Yeah, it's very complex. That's why I'll break it down for you, keep it super simple. Like Einstein said, if you can't explain it simplistically, you don't understand it fully. So the slide looks like this. This slide summarizes the last 300 years of research in the three following fields: quantum mechanics or quantum physics, studying the real laws of nature; metaphysics, the more spiritual, esoteric aspect of things; and also Newtonian physics, studying the laws of matter. And what we now know, ladies and gentlemen, is that we are not matter, we are wave. We are more wave and energy than we are matter. But it just so happens that if we have wave, if we have energy, frequency, and vibration that's slowed down enough, it actually crystallizes into what we call matter. And so I'd like to take you through this process just really quickly by demonstrating what we see on the outside compared to what's really on the inside. So if you see at the top of the chart, and if you're home, you should be able to see this as well. You can see it says here on the third one from the left is this material sign. So let's call that matter. That means that you and I have a body. Okay, so we are matter, a right hand and a left hand. So I'd like you to do this for me. Just have a look at your hand for a moment. Okay, and when you see your hand, you can see the epidermis, which is the outside or the outer layer of the skin, and you can easily see that that is matter. Okay? But if we go deeper, if again look at the slide and you go deeper, when we get to the third level, we come to quantum mechanics and nuclear physics. And if we go to the core of it, what we find is, of course, what we know as the unified field. Okay, this is really at the base of who we are. So again, imagine you put your hand under a microscope. It's a really good electron microscope, and it gets to get to the core of who and what you are. Okay, so you put your hand under a microscope, you have the epidermis and the dermal levels and the subdermal levels, but what are you going to see in this microscope? Well, firstly, you're going to see a thing called a molecule. I know many of you have heard of a molecule before. And then you go lower to the next level, you're going to find a thing that we in Australia call an atom, right? An atom. And then in the middle of the atom, you're going to find what? A nucleus. Okay, so we have molecule, atom, and nucleus. Are you with me still? Okay, and if we go deeper, guess what? Scientifically proven, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, for the last 100 years, known through spirituality for thousands of years, if you put your hand, your heart, your head, anything under a microscope and you go deep enough, you will find that you, at the core, you're made up of 99.9% pure empty space. Are you guys up for some fun? Yes? Okay, let's do this. If you're at home, you're up for some fun, join me, actually do this. Raise your hand up nice and high. Like I told you, I'm an interactive speaker. You're not going to get away with it. Nice and high. Okay, turn to the person next to give them a high five and say, you are spaced out. That is what we call an anchor. Okay? So I just took 300 years of science in three fields and gave you an anchor. programmed into the subconscious mind. So next time you give someone a high five and say you are spaced out, you'll have this knowledge in your subconscious, okay? You're welcome. But it's a really great way for us to understand what science says about the nature of reality, what spirituality, as I said, have been teaching for thousands of years. So we find ourselves, and by the way, if you don't believe that, just let's be clear, 99.9999999% of who and what we are is what we call empty space. Einstein asked the question, he said, what is this empty space? Is it nothingness? Is it everythingness? And what we now know is within this empty space there is intelligence. It's as if the universe is aware of itself. It's aware that it's aware, and that's awareness right there. And this becomes a really interesting conversation because we now know that consciousness is everywhere beyond space and time. And consciousness is expressed in this temporary reality through what we call the 5 senses, or 6 if you include thought. So for us now, this is a conversation where we get to stand on the shoulders of giants, ladies and gentlemen, because not only do we get to take the ancient wisdoms of the ones who walked this path thousands of years ago, but we now get to know the truth behind it from a scientific perspective. And as we look at this now, I feel tingles at the top of my head as I share this because it's so simple. Right? If you don't believe me, you can go to your ChatGPT or whatever AI tool you use, or Google or whatever, and just write in the question, what percentage of my atoms are made up of empty space? And you will get this 99.9%. Now, it's interesting because at the core of creation, at the core of reality, is the unified field. But would you agree that if I look at you, it seems like you're sitting down there, or wherever you're watching from, wherever you're watching in the world, but I'm up here. Would it be fair to say that it seems that we're separate? This, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to write it down, is what we call the illusion of separation. The illusion of separation. The primary interference pattern to your pineal gland and third eye. The illusion that we are separate. We are separate. You're there, I'm here, but that's only true in 0.0001% of everything that exists in nature. So through that 99%, we know that everything is connected. And this is such a powerful concept because we know that we're connected. If I ask you if you're connected, if everything is connected, you'd say yes. But still, at some point in time, we've walked past a beggar on the street and not even sent him or her some love because we were caught up in our own stuff. But when we come home to the remembering that all is one and unique expressions of Source, we can recognize ourselves in each other. And that is a critical part of our awakening. We cannot take that and make that leap unless we can begin to embody, not just theoretically, but in practice, this unity consciousness. It's the fundamental principle, it's the number one of the 12 universal laws. The law of divine oneness. So let's look at some of these faculties, and let's have a conversation around how much of this 99.9% of pure untapped, let me be clear, you're made up of 99.9% pure untapped energy potential. Right? For me as a physician, I was working with my patients, and what we did a lot of the time, God bless my past and all that sort of stuff, we were working with them merely on a physical level. Or you have a liver problem, let's fix the liver. Or you have a problem with your brain, let's look at the brain scans, let's do the blood test. Great. It's very important to do this. But I was missing the mark because I was not seeing the patient or the person as energy, frequency, and vibration. I was not necessarily practicing the wholeness to the level that I do now. And so to be clear, ladies and gentlemen, if you're only working with healing on a physical front, the nutrition and the movement, which are fundamental, critical, non-negotiable factors, you're still only working with less than 1% of your potential. Does that make sense? So we want to really understand or understand energy, frequency, and vibration. So I'll take us to this next slide, and we'll talk a little bit about the current level that we're at in humanity. And before I do, I'd like to kind of ask you a question. Do you believe that when we look at something like the pyramids 3,000 to 5,000 years ago, that we seem to have been somewhat more advanced as a species in the past? There was knowledge in the past. Maybe we got help from, outer sources, or maybe we did that as a, on our own accord as a species. But what we now know is we cannot replicate the pyramids that were built, say, 3,000 to 5,000 years ago. It's 2025, and we can't build a pyramid the way it was built thousands of years ago. So hang on, what's going on? Either we forgot some shit, and by the way, shit is spiritual healing in thyself. Don't make me say the F word. Future understanding of conscious knowledge. Okay? Yeah, worth writing down that one. Future understanding of conscious knowledge. Either we've forgotten some stuff, or we're more advanced in the past. I believe there were, as beautifully shared by Gaia and Greg Braden and many others, there were civilizations of the past that were way more advanced than where we are. So it may just be that we are remembering that we're starting to put together the pieces again of what we used to know back then. So if we keep an open mind from a higher perspective, my hypothesis is simple. I'm going to tell you this right now as a friend, not necessarily as a physician or a teacher, but as a friend, I'm going to say there's nothing wrong with you. In the allopathic model of medicine, which is wonderful because it's saved a lot of lives, but it's also taken a lot of lives, what we've found is that there's often a label. You have this and you have that, and you are sick and you are broken, and therefore here is your prognosis. And you believe it, and so therefore you'll achieve it, but you and I might look at things from a different regard. So I say there's nothing wrong with you. There's no need for curing or fixing or treating. But I will say this, there are levels of interference. This is a word that I'd like you to write down if you're watching, wherever you're watching from in the world, write down the word interference. There are levels of interference. And these levels of interference are the things that we can remove. There's physical interference, mental interference, emotional interference, spiritual interference, chemical interference. And if we remove these levels of interference, take a physical one, for example. Most people are overfed and undernourished. If you remove the physical impurities, then you are already going to raise to a high vibration. So again, I love this. We're not going anywhere. We're coming home. It rings so true to my heart. The essence of your soul is abundant. The essence of your soul is limitless. The essence of your soul is love. How do we get to love? You're not going to love, you're coming home to love. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. So let's look at some of these faculties. Here we are. And by the way, are you aware that you're aware of your breath right now? You're breathing, yes? Okay, good. Stay aware that you're aware of your breath. Okay, so humans, 99.9% pure empty space, pure untapped energy potential. This is where we get the chance to unlock, unleash, and unblock that life force, that prana that is who and what we are. But similarly, look at the eyes and the ears. Currently, as you look around this room and wherever you are in the world, you can see, have a look, less than 0.035% of the colors that exists in this room. You can hear less than 0.8% of the sounds that exist right now. So when they say the Matrix, it's a fairly good choice of words, I would say, because it actually enables us to realize how much we're not seeing or hearing or tuning into just yet. But as we turn on these faculties, as you can see, many of you have heard that we only use 5 to 10% of our brain. That is debatable now in neuroscience, but nonetheless, it's worth mentioning. I think within this, what we are doing is we are activating these faculties. We are remembering what we once used to know. And even if that's not true, what we are doing is we're toggling on, this is my hypothesis, this is not science, I'll tell you what I believe, we're toggling on dormant DNA. Because the so-called scientists have said that 98% of your DNA is junk. Great. I am junk. I don't think so, my friend. I think that 98% almost matches the 99%. of code yet to be activated. Is this an okay belief to have? Because if we can choose this belief, and I know Richard Rudd and the Gene Keys talks beautifully about activating this golden strand. I mean, potentially we are now a two-stranded carbon DNA being. Who knows if we've been downgraded or if we're going to be upgraded or upgrade ourselves perhaps to a 12-stranded divine light DNA. That's what I believe. And so this is the transition. And these are the tools. These are the tools that we'd like to use. And so what do we know about science? Well, many of you will know who this gentleman is. Who's this guy? Tesla. He wasn't very smart, was he? Just one of the brightest minds on the planet. And he said, and I quote, if you want to find the secrets to the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Can we do that together? Everyone at home as well, repeat this together. Maybe we'll remember if we repeat. It goes like this. If you want to find secrets of the universe, think in terms of and vibration. Okay, let's have some fun. Raise your hand up. I know I'm interactive. You got this. Raise your hand up. Turn to the person next to give them a high five and say you're vibing high. There's another version to that one. It has to do with the vibrator, but we'll leave that one for another time. This is the new human. It's the new quantum human. So let's be clear. The slides that I showed you a little while ago, that's the old human. Okay, where 98% of you is junk, where you're only tapping into less than 1% of what's existing in this reality, where you can only perceive, believe, and therefore achieve what's happening in the third dimension. But if we are spirits, again, spirit and soul, capital S, if we are spirit, soul, source, consciousness, having a human experience, the body, the mind, small s, then if we can bridge those two together, we can bring heaven on earth. Heaven on earth is not out there, it's here. Heaven on earth is not later, it's now. You don't need to ask what's happening in the world and what's going to happen. Choose it. Live it. Declare it. Share it. That's how you bring heaven on earth. Make love, peace, and higher states of consciousness your everyday reality. That's how we do it. Just do it. Just live it. That's the key, I believe. And so, as we know, the new quantum human is now upon us. And I want to take you through a journey. I want to take you through a story. Because often we think we come for content, but we often come for story and transformation. And we're going to do a little breathing exercise later as well, which will be wonderful. And then later, if you want to, I'm also going to give you a little QR code, and you can download one of my breathworks and start practicing every day if you wanted to for free. But I want to take you back in time. I want to share a story with you. Before we share this story, if you're watching at home, if you're in this room, I'd like you to grab your pen and paper, and I'd like you to start by taking a breath in, so breathing in, and breathing out. Very good. Breathing in, aware that you're breathing in. Breathing out, aware that you're breathing out. Wonderful. We've already meditated 4 times during the last 40 minutes or whatever. So as you breathe now, I'd like you to tune into, to feel into either 1, the biggest challenge you've ever faced in your life, or 2, the biggest challenge that you're currently facing right now. And not just think of it, but feel it, okay? The feeling is the healing. Emotion, energy in motion, yes? So feel. Feel into the biggest challenge that you've had in your life, or the biggest challenge that you're experiencing right now. And again, everyone at home as well, write it down. So if you haven't started writing, feel free to start writing now. Take this moment to be with your breath and to acknowledge your greatest challenge in life, in the past or in the present. And as I take you on the journey of this story, I'd like you to envision that this is your story. that my story is similar to yours, of course not the same, but similar. How many of you have seen the movie Frozen? You've seen the movie Frozen? You've got kids, you've seen it 10 times, right? I want to see it again. Elsa. Most people don't know this, but the movie Frozen is actually based on my hometown. It's a real place, and it's called Arendelle. It's a tiny little, used to be an old fisherman village in the south of Norway, in Scandinavia, yeah? And I remember this like it was yesterday. I was born and raised in a little family. It was my mother and myself, my little sister, and my little brother. And it's quite a gorgeous place, as you can see. It's very magical in many ways. We have very cold winters and also beautiful summers. And I remember this. I was 5 years old. So imagine this little blonde kid, 5 years old, and I woke up. This was in July 1988. And I woke up and I had such giddiness in my heart. I had such joy in my being because it was school holiday. I didn't have to go to school, and I was going to go outside and play on the playground with my friends. As I woke up in my little wooden bed, I could hear my friends outside playing and carrying on. And I sat up, and I remember I looked up and I saw a poster of Ninja Turtles. I used to love Ninja Turtles, still do. And then I saw a poster of Michael Jackson. That's my favorite music at the time. Yeah, the king of pop. And I sat up on my bed and I could hear my friends. I could feel the summer that was in the air, and I was so excited to go outside and play. And as I sat up on my bed, suddenly it all changed. I heard this horrendous scream. You know, this type of scream that when you hear it, you deep down in your bones know that something's gone horribly wrong. I could tell it was my mum, and she was screaming and screaming at the top of her lungs. So I bounced up out of bed. I sprinted down the hallway to my brother Kevin's room, where the screams were coming from. And as I entered Kevin's room, I saw my mum sitting like this, holding her son, screaming at the top of her lungs. That's when I experienced my first deep trauma, which was the death of my little brother. I remember when I entered the room, he was blue. And so I know this is an emotional story, but there's a reason behind this. And again, your story is your emotional story also. Every day now when I get to go home to Norway, I go home every year, I take a knee by his grave, and not so much in grief anymore, but in gratitude for this incredible gift. This gift that we often take for granted, this gift that we call life. Have you noticed that people just go about life in their everyday whatever until they normally have a trauma, a transformation, a pit, something, sometimes disease, and it's not until they almost lose life that they recognize the value of it? So it's not about existing. It's about truly living. Where are you not truly living? So when my brother died, I was devoted to finding out what it truly means to live a magnificent life, because it's precious. It's so, so precious. 2 years after my brother Kevin died, my little sister Katinka was born. And she was born permanently disabled. She has a condition called spina bifida vera, where her spinal cord goes from her brain, but instead of going down to her legs, it exits at L3. So she's never had the chance to do what we can do, to walk, to stand, to run, like most of us in this room. And so when it came to my brother, the first question I had was, what does it mean to truly live? And when it came to my sister, the question was, what does it mean to truly heal? Where does sickness and disease come from? These are the two questions that I've been obsessed with all of my life. 36, 37 years now, since that happened. And so I wanted to be smart, I wanted to be learned, because I had a learning difficulty when I was young. I couldn't read or write well. I don't know if any of you had this experience where you have to read out loud in class. All right? And I remember I was asked to read, and I was like, no, please, not me. And it was getting closer and closer, and then the teacher said, hey, Espen, stand up. Time for you to read. And as I started reading, all the numbers and letters were all moving around, and I couldn't see it. I couldn't read it, and I started to shake. And the whole class burst out in laughter. I can't read. So I thought I was stupid. As my friend Dr. John D. Martini says, the void drives the value. What you perceive as missing is what you seek. Here I am, chasing knowledge and wisdom as my highest value. And so, as I grew up, I had this trauma. My mum didn't know how to deal with the loss of her son. God bless her soul. She's left us now. She exited during the Lionsgate portal. So she became an alcoholic. She was drunk every day for 15 years. Now, I don't know what you know about alcohol. Alcohol, the etymology of the word means to extract the essence out of something. Okay? No amount of alcohol is good for you. I'm not judging if you have a glass of wine from time to time. That does happen in my reality. But I borrowed my mother's program. When I was stressed, I would reach for alcohol. Which program have you borrowed? The overeating program? The victim-based program? We'll talk. That was my program. That was what I borrowed. But imagine growing up in a family where your father's not around much, your mother's an alcoholic, you can't read or write well. Major traumas. You know what I experienced? A tremendous amount of emotional suppression. So I'm going to do this for you really quickly. I hope this makes sense. And I'll talk fast because I need to be on time for everybody else. The quality of your life equals the quality of your emotions. Okay, so we have the masculine, which is the thought, and the feminine, which is the emotion. Plus, minus, electric, magnetic. Okay? The thought is easy, I want $1 million. Unless you're hijacked, your mind is hijacked, and you need to start to focus your mind. The emotion is more of a difficult aspect because you can't just say, oh, I feel great now. There is a process. Because, as Joe Dispenza says also, the thoughts are the language of the mind and the emotions are the language of the body. To change the subatomic vibration within your body and being is to change the emotion. Now, emotion should be energy in motion. As you know, everything in reality moves in waves. A high vibration is normally what we want, peace, love, and healing. A low vibration is sickness and disease. You might want to write this down. All sickness and suffering is a low vibration. Cause and effect. All sickness and suffering is a low vibration. So what's the answer? Well, the answer is to increase energy frequency and vibration. Tesla was right. And so here is the missing component, though. Imagine this. I grew up in a family, and it was no talking about emotions. If I ask you now, please raise your hand. If you're at home as well, tune into this. If you were raised in a family where it was common to talk about emotions around the dinner table. Not many hands go up. A couple of blessed souls in the room. If I say raise your hand if you grew up in a household similar to the one I grew up in where we used to not talk about emotions. Harden up. Get on with it. Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, again, the quality of your life equals the quality of your emotions. Let's break this down. Hang on. Are you saying that the quality of my life equals the quality of my emotions? Yes. Because if you experience procrastination, hesitation, frustration, desperation, and depression as your primary state of being, as your primary emotion, you perceive your quality of life to be lower. Is that a fair assumption? But if you perceive love and joy and peace and gratitude and enthusiasm as your primary states of emotion, you perceive your quality of life to be high. Yes? So the quality of my life equals the quality of my emotions. This is a language that we haven't been taught. This was the blessing of the trauma of growing up with emotional suppression. Because I finally got to realize how unhappy I was, how I was living in fear and distress. And I got to take that journey into understanding the true essence of human emotion. And we can do that. But as also Bruce Lipton says, you guys have heard of the imprint period, right? The first 7 years of life. From 0 to 7, 95 to 98% of your programming is created in the first 7 years. So you can say, I want to feel great, I want to feel great, I want to feel great, so I can heal great and heal great and heal great. But that's not as easy unless we go back to the childhood period and sit with the trauma, not bypassing, but to feel it fully, so that we never have to feel it like that ever again. And that's what I do in my curriculum. So I take our students and our patients through this timeline where we get to go back and we get to change our fear to fuel. Our trauma becomes our transformation. Our pit becomes part of our purpose. Our mess becomes part of our message. And he works for every single person, every single time. But if we don't have the opportunity to do this kind of work, then we'll get what we always got because we haven't changed the program. We didn't change it at a subatomic level. Does that make sense? So it's not just about talking about it, it's about changing it. Anyway, so I digress. What do you get when you have a young man who's way too polarized in his masculine? Because again, emotions, feminine. I wasn't feeling the emotions. I was super strong. I was very strong physically, very strong mentally, and impeccably weak emotionally. Now, what do you get when you're over-polarized in one side? Well, you know, we have the yin and the yang, the masculine and the feminine, the combination of both within. And so if you want mastery in your life, you master the thoughts and emotions, then you master creation. Manifestation is not, I want $1 million. It's actually, I want $1 million, and I know how abundant I am. I feel it in every cell of my body and being. 5,000 times more powerful is the magnetic field of the heart compared to the magnetic field of the brain, according to the Heart Math Institute. So if you want to be a masterful manifester, emotions is the secret of the secret. Now, what do you get when you have a lot of suppressed emotion and a young man with ADHD and polarized in his masculine? You get what's called the universal lesson. So I had a great lesson. And this was in 2006. I was living in Melbourne. I just arrived in Australia. And I was riding a 600cc motorcycle. I'm going a little bit too fast, doing about 95 in an 80 zone. And I was coming around a corner in a place called Stiggen Reserve. I dropped into second gear. And as I came around the corner, there had been rain the day before, or the night before. And so there was gravel. And so as I'm coming around, low-sided, I lost the front wheel. Boom, 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 and crash, snap, broke both my legs. Cracked my pelvis, snapped off my spinous process. I remember this, I was lying on the ground in the park, and my right foot is on my right shoulder. And my toes are touching the back of my ear. So the femur snapped, and it was rotated, and my feet were literally behind my ear. And so I snapped. This is not good, right? Someone said the other day, why on earth are you smiling? I said, have you ever heard of the green whistle? Thank God for a bit of morphine when you're in a lot of pain. But by the way, there's not a single pharmaceutical company on the planet that can compete with the pharmacy in between your two ears. Remember that. Remember that. So here I was. The ambulance came, stopped the bleeding, put me on a stretcher, took me to the Royal Melbourne Hospital and put 14 different pieces of metal in me, bolts, pins, plates, and screws. And some weeks and into months later, I was out of the hospital and in a wheelchair like my sister. Got myself onto crutches, started walking again. A year later, I went back to the Royal Melbourne Hospital to take the metal out because it was painful. I had a pin through my right femur that was about 1.5 centimeters longer than my thigh bone. So it was scratching into my hip as I was walking for a year and a bit. And so I went and took the metal out, and that's when I got the greatest gift from God, greater organized design, source, creator, universe, whatever you want to call it, which was a staph infection. I got the staph infection from the hospital, and I remember I thought someone had spilled coffee down my leg, and I turned around, there was no one there, and I looked, and there was blood and pus covering my leg. I thought, oh, no. So I went to the lab. I said to the guys at pathology, I said, you need to swab this and send it off. I need to know what culture this is. And it came back staph. For those of you who don't know, MRSA is a multi-resistant staph infection. It's the type of infection that eats away your flesh and does not respond, if at all, to antibiotics. So the system didn't know what to do, so the system said, we're going to give you lots of antibiotics just in case. But what you may not know is that you have more bacteria in your body than you have cells. You are made up of bacteria. Bacteria is not bad. You can't live without bacteria. In fact, the majority of your immune system comes from the bacterial flora in your gut. Majority of people watching out there and in this room right now, you have parasites in your body and being, and you've probably never tested for it. So this is where we could do some of the functional medicine stuff, which is useful. Very, very useful. To see is to know, not to see is to guess. But they didn't know how to deal with the staph infection, so they said, well, we'll give you drugs instead, or just in case. So they put me up with a broad-spectrum antibiotic, pumping me full of heavy drugs. And then I remember, and no judgment here, by the way, just to tell the story, I was laid up in hospital, they're pumping me full of drugs, I'm losing weight, I'm getting sicker and sicker, and they're feeding me white bread and Jell-O. And I'm like, no thanks. And I went back and forth to the hospital for 1 year and 2 months. And again, your story and my story is similar. I know mine's different, but you have a story similar to this. Maybe it's pain, maybe it's trauma, maybe it's loss. I'm getting to the point here, okay? For 1 year and 2 months, I fought for my life with the staph infection. For 1 year and 2 months, I was losing weight and losing weight and losing weight. I lost 15 kilos. Like now, I don't have a lot of body fat. You can imagine taking 15 kilos off my body now. I knew that I was dying. In 2008, a surgeon walks in, he looks at the chart, he looks at me, shakes his head, and he said, Espen, the infection's spreading. He said, we've got 2 choices, young man. 1, we cut your leg off. He said, if we can amputate your leg, we can stop the infection from going inside the femur and spreading and going systemic. We'll save your life if we can take your leg. And I remember it. I thought to myself, all right, so I'll be permanently disabled like my sister. And then he said, if we don't do that, if the infection continues to spread, you get sepsis. And you die. Great. So I will die like my brother. My 2 greatest fears were realized in that moment. And in that moment, like that, for the first time in my life at the time, Spirit came through. Spirit came through like a lightning bolt. And for 1 year and 2 months, I lived in fear. I had no family in Australia. Trying to work it out. And Spirit came through, and for the first time in my life, I felt grace. For the first time in my life, I felt peace. And Spirit said one thing. Spirit said, if it is to be, it's up to me. Go home and breathe. My whole body, I can feel it now. Go home and breathe. And my rational mind went, what the F are you talking about? Go home and breathe. I'm dying here. Breathe. Thanks, mate. But it was so real and it was so true. And for the first time I had this stillness, this peace, this knowing. So I looked at the surgeon, I said, thanks, doc. And he left the hospital and I ripped the intravenous out of my arms and I left the hospital and never looked back. Can I tell you something cool? Check it out. I got 2 legs. Woo! I got 2 legs. I'll tell you one thing. Some people think that's great. Some people are like, yeah, whatever. I'll tell you what. My sister would have given anything to say that. So what are we taking for granted? How do you expect the universe to give you more if you don't already cultivate wholehearted gratitude for the things that you've been blessed? Every day we cultivate gratitude. That's the part of the secret. And so, I went home I sat up on my bed in Northcote, Melbourne, and I started breathing. Now, I was a yoga teacher, so I knew a little bit about breath, but the breath that came through, it's called the quantum DMT breathwork experience. I'm working with the Gaia team. Hopefully we can get that out to you guys at some point. The breathwork experience that I received, I don't take credit for it. It's not my breathwork. It came from somewhere much greater than me. But what came through was code. What came through was clarity. What came through was a system. Okay? And so I sat up on my bed and I started breathing. Whee, I felt good. I got high on my own supply. It was so great. And so when it happened, I was breathing and I felt amazing. I passed out. And I woke up and I was like, whee, this is great. And again, remember, I lived in fear for 1 year and 2 months. So I thought, this is amazing. I feel great. I'm going to do that again. And so I did it again, and I did it again 2-3 times a day. Next day, 4-5 times a day, breathing. What's interesting was, as I was breathing, visions of finding a blue baby was coming up. Visions of being bullied at school because I couldn't read or write well was coming up. Visions of seeing my sister being bullied because of her disability was coming up. And I'm breathing, thinking, hang on, I've got a hole on the side of my hip. This has been open for 1 year and 2 months. Sometimes it's about 1 millimeter or 2, sometimes it's 1 centimeter. And this hole doesn't close off because of the infection. But as I was breathing, the hole was getting smaller. And I didn't know what it was, but I kept on doing it because it was getting smaller. And ladies and gentlemen, I've fought for my life with this infection for 1 year and 2 months. And 3.5 weeks, I healed myself through the power of breath. 3.5 weeks. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying if you break a leg, don't go to the hospital. If you break a leg, don't meditate. You go to hospital, you get care, and then you meditate. Okay? So sick care is relevant and it's necessary if you have a trauma. But what I want to talk to you about is how to optimize human performance. So basically, I went from 2 broken legs and almost dying in a hospital bed twice to becoming, anyone heard of Ninja Warrior? Yeah. Right, so I happened to be on the show twice. This is a picture from the show. And I managed to, without any training, getting through the course and up the top of that thing and smashing that buzzer. And I'm really, I'm not sharing that to impress you, but to impress upon you that if I can go from being born and raised in a broken home, in a broken family, with a broken mind, being financially broke, to literally having 2 broken legs and almost dying twice, to getting to where I am now, you are miles ahead. You are miles ahead. And all you've got to do is to say yes today and work at how along the way. It'll take you to where you want to go. Just don't stop. Trust the innate potential. 70 trillion cells, each cell has an estimated 6 trillion actions. It does 6 trillion different things per cell per second. That is you. That is intelligence at play. And so I want to talk to you about this hypothesis. I've got 20 minutes left. And the hypothesis is that there's more to us than meets the eye. The hypothesis, of course, means a theory that we're trying to prove. And I want to take you through my theory. I want to show you my method. And I'd like you to kind of tune into it with your intuition and your mind as well. So let's go. How many of you have heard of the chakras, energy centers? Raise your hand if you're at home as well. Yeah, cool. So it's interesting. I had a great chat with Joe Dispenza some years ago in Cancun. And I asked him, hey, Joe, out of all the things you've done, all the science, everything that you've studied and researched, the hundreds of thousands of people that you've helped, what's the thing that's blown your mind the most? We're walking on the beach, you're having a good chat. It's like, okay, let's go. You're like, ask the question. What's the thing that's blown your mind the most? And this is what he said, and you might want to write this down. He said, the most mind-boggling thing is that 95% of the energy any person has available to them is hidden, trapped away, locked away in the 3 lower centers. If you've studied Joe, you've probably heard him say this before. Okay, so he says that 95% of all the life force that you have available to you is locked away in the 3 lower chakras. Hang on, listen. You have one of the world's greatest neuroscientists, and his topic of choice is chakras. Thank God. Energy centers, call them English, chakras. It just means a spinning wheel. Do you still believe from our conversation yesterday that you are spirit, consciousness, more than just flesh and bone, yes or no? Just reiterating the conversation so we can go to the next level. Okay, so we know that we are, and we know that everything is energy. Would you agree? And so the question that I ask myself, if everything is energy, what are these energy centers? Hippocrates said, first look to the spine for the cause of disease. It's literally right in the middle. And these energy centers, I believe, is the centers of our ontological being. It's the connection highway between the lower self, the body, the mind, and the five senses, and the spirit and the soul. And so if we have to bring heaven on earth, we have to understand, understand who and what we are, which is energy. So I had this experience. I was in clinic. I was owning and operating 10 multidisciplinary clinics at the time. Chiropractors, medical doctors, dentists, nurses, naturopaths. It was all founded and grounded within yoga, breath, movement, and meditation, which was awesome. And I retired from clinical practice in 2016 because I was burnt out, I was successful, but I was very unhappy. So I thought to myself, what do you do when you're burnt out and unhappy? I've got the science of achievement, but certainly not the art of fulfillment. So what do? I set a one-way ticket to Peru, deep into the Amazon jungle to drink ayahuasca, and then I'll find myself. So I thought, that's a great journey. And by the way, you talk about these sacred medicines, these sacred sacraments, ayahuasca, San Pedro, all of these wonderful gifts from Gaia are to be treated with respect. You don't just go there and do it, okay? You study the shaman, you study the lineage, you learn the songs, you learn the rituals, you do breathing for a long time before you go and do something like that. No one just does it. It's very special, this thing. And you do it in the right way. Anyway, so I've done over 100 ceremonies now, but my first ceremony I went to Peru, and I had this amazing awakening experience. I was looking at these chakras, the energy centers, and I thought to myself, I'm supposed to be a physician, I'm supposed to be a researcher, but most of my life I've never really studied what's happening on the inside. So I looked at the chakras, the energy centers. There's at least 112. We work with 7 mostly. I work with 8 in my model because I want to give us access to the soul star center, the soul, the state of unconditional light, state of unconditional love and light. And I want to give us access to the soul within the here and now. So in my model, there's 8 areas of life and there's 8 chakras or 8 energy centers. And I found, and here's the key, that they fit like hand in glove. That each energy center is directly connected to a specific area of life. And everything is connected. So I'm going to share this with you now. And then you're welcome to take a picture of this or take a note, whichever you prefer. This is my method. And I realized that the biggest mistake that I had made, I was telling you this story before. People ask, what was the mistake? The mistake, ladies and gentlemen, was looking outside of myself for answers. I was in the hospital. I was looking to the doctors and the surgeons and the nurses and the drugs to heal me. Let me ask you a question. If you break a bone, if the doctor puts it together, who heals the bone? Can you point to the healer? Can you point to the doctor? You are the hero in your life. You are the doctor. You are the physician. Make no mistake. If it is to be, it's up to me. My mistake almost cost me my life twice. And the mistake was looking outside of myself, hey doc, when will I heal? Hey doc, how's my blood test going? And it's not until I learned the power of breath that I could stand before you with 2 legs. So what I realized, and again, you don't have to go without when you go within. Where else are you seeking validation from external sources that shroud, that cloud, that shrink your soul's magnificence? Even in religion, we see the externalization of divinity. Divinity is within and without, of course. But the point is, as I studied these energy centers, I realized that each of them are connected to an area of life. Let's take one example. Let's do the green one. Oh, that love. So the heart center is connected to our relationships in my model. Do you think it's fair to say that if your heart field is closed off, that it's going to have a direct impact on your relationships? Of course. And if your heart field is open, the electromagnetic torus field of the heart is open. If your heart is open, if you can love, give and receive love, then it's going to have a direct positive impact on your relationships. Would you agree? So of course, it's an inside job. So if you want to heal your relationships, no point pointing fingers, 3 fingers pointing back. If you want to heal your relationships, open your heart. How do you open your heart? Oh, my heart is open. You know what we do? We take you back in time across the quantum timeline. We take you into the moment of the past that broke your heart the most. And we sit with it and we feel it. We feel it fully in every cell of our beings. We never have to feel it like that ever again. And then we take you back across the timeline into the present moment, and you get to journal how your heart broke and what happened and everything. You get to write it all out. And then we take you through an experience. We have 8 areas of life. We do 8 breakthroughs in the Quantum Human or Quantum Advanced seminar. And then you get to walk around the room and find the person, sit and speak, and say, I miss you, I love you. My heart broke. And you get to say the things you never got to say, from your heart to their heart, from your soul to their soul. And then you go from grief to gratitude, because you know nothing's missing. The people that you're grieving, the things that you're grieving, they're here with you in the room right now. Nothing is separate. They're not gone. They're just maybe not in physical form. And maybe they are, maybe they're somewhere else. So what I realized is that, hey, if we want to experience love, we've got to open the heart. If we want to experience good health, we need to look at the first energy center, because the root center is connected to the body, to physical health. And then I started to study this, and I found an ancient model in the Upanishads, in the old yogic traditions, that showed that each energy center was blocked, and here's the key, by a primary interference pattern. Now there's many interference patterns, but there's a primary interference pattern. I'll give it to you really quickly. I'll give you half of them, and then you can ask if you have any questions later. It goes like this. The first one, the root center, is blocked by fear. First, fear, false evidence appearing real. The first one's blocked by fear. Fear vibrates at 100 oscillations or cycles a second, based on the Hawkins scale of consciousness. The second one is blocked by guilt. The third one is blocked by shame. The fourth one is blocked by grief, and so on and so forth. So what we do with our students is we take them back in time and we turn fear to fuel, guilt to gratitude, grief to gratitude, and so on and so forth. And it's an alchemical process that increases the energy, frequency, and vibration in the body and being. And again, the quality of our life equals the quality of our emotions. If our standard bandwidth of emotion at the moment is about 200 to 300, whatever it is, if we let go of fear, the truth will appear, so simple and clear. And then we come up to a high vibration. It's not better or worse. It's just brighter up here or in here. So the method is interesting, and we've had the chance to graduate over 10,000 people now and do some great research with some local universities as well. So that's the method. And it goes, as you can see, all the way up to the Soul Star Center to fill up the body and being with the light that we are. So I want to ask you some questions. Okay, sit up nice and tall. Let's do some quick breathing. Let's sit up nice and tall for a minute. I'll ask you a couple of questions. As you correct your posture, you're aware that you're aware of your posture. You correct your breath. Take a sip of water. This water, by the way, this is intelligence. The water, have a conversation with the water. Be one with the water. Your body is water. Know the water. The wisdom of the universe is in the water. Okay. Pop quiz, ladies and gentlemen, at home, in the room. How long can we go without food? It's going to be many different answers, yeah. How long can we go without food? 3 to 4 weeks. 3 to 4 days? A couple of days? Years? 25 days? Okay. 45 days? Okay, cool. So many people would say, at least some years ago, 3, 4 days. You know, some people, hours, you know. That's a parasite speaking, by the way, not you. So the longest I've gone, and I do this regularly, 30 days on water. Okay? I was about to do a vision quest only last weekend or the weekend before, but the cyclone hit. But I was going to do 4 days, no food, no water, no shelter. We are overfed and undernourished. I know friends of mine, people that are breatharians, that have gone months without food. When it talks about this in the Holy Scriptures, even in the Bible, it says something like gluttony. They're not talking about 10 meals a day. For some people, 3 meals a day, 4 meals a day is gluttony. And I'm not saying that you should change everything. I'm saying most people are overfed and undernourished. You can go a lot longer without food than you know. In fact, now my friend David Avocado Wolf is also sharing this. You know what? At the moment, my chronological age is 42. I'm 42 years on the planet. My biological age is 24. So just flip those two numbers. And this is through extensive genetic testing, so I've got evidence to all this. But I'm 24. The first time I tested, I was 22 years old. My body was 26. I was like, what's going on? So I've reversed it. So I'm currently aging at 0.8 years for every 1 year that a normal person would age. So when I'm 120 years old, my body's only 75 years young. Make sense? So why am I saying this? 1 meal a day. This is not advice. Don't go and do this right away. Check with your naturopath or your integrative medical doctor or whatever. But 1 meal a day is a great strategy. Intermittent fasting, for most people, unless you're diabetic and you have low blood sugar or blood pressure or something like that, most people, seriously, 1 meal a day. If you reduce the calories coming in, you'll increase the quality of your life. Okay? So take this with you, and if you want to activate superhuman faculties, reducing calories is a non-negotiable. Cool? Again, not advice, but something to research. Okay, how long can we go without water? Couple of days? About a week? Well, look at the sun dancers. They're doing 4 to 8 days in the sun, continuously dancing in the sun, no water. It depends on the environment. Depends on, here it's really dry in the air. Where I live, it's really humid in the air. It depends. But let's say that we can't go as long without water compared to food. Okay? How long can you go without air? 30 seconds? We could do some breath work to improve that. How long? Anyone? Minutes. 7 minutes, your brain's going to go through hypoxia, and it's farewell. Okay? Maybe a minute for some, maybe 2 minutes for others. Ladies and gentlemen, air is the primary healing element. What happens when you're born? You take your first What happens when you leave this planet? You take your last breath. In many languages, including in Australia, indigenous languages, the word for breath and spirit is the same thing. Same thing. Do you want to hear something cool? You are walking around with a superpower hidden right underneath your nose. And no one has taught you about it until today. Or maybe you've heard some about it. A quote, when your breath becomes 11, you'll understand the language of every animal and bird. When your breath becomes 9, you will tune in to Gaia. You will feel her. You will be one with her. When your breath becomes 7, well, you'll know everything worth knowing in existence, according to Sadhguru. We shared a stage together not long ago in Abu Dhabi. The reason why I share this is because many of you might even not know how many breaths you're taking a minute. I'm currently at 15, going for 14. So reducing, slowing down your breath. So I want to talk about the history of breath. And thousands of years ago, there existed a brotherhood of mystics, the ancient yogis in the mountains of the Himalayas, that had discovered certain tools to defy the laws of physics, where they could be buried underground without breathing for days because they could slow their heart rate down so much. Where they could literally set fire. You've seen the monks, how they set fire to things using prana. And this wisdom was passed down from master to chosen disciple in absolute secrecy. But that time is over. The wisdom is here and it's now. So we know with the history, even in meditation, have you noticed in meditation that breath is the primary anchor point? Breath is spirit, spirit is life. Which is why I'm so excited to be sharing the power of breathing, because there's breathing for super performance, and there's breathing for anxiety, and there's breathing for relationships, there's breathing for all kinds of things. And we love sharing the power of breathing. So it's been around for thousands of years. And even the science is mind-boggling. I'll go through this quickly. Wim Hof. Anyone heard of Wim Hof? Amazing. So they took a study of 30 people They injected them with a dangerous pathogen, an endotoxin, and 15 of them, so half of the group, were trained in the Wim Hof method, and half of them were not. The group that was trained in the Wim Hof method, which is what? Breathing, meditation, and cold therapy, showed incredible resilience against the endotoxin. Hardly any symptoms of flu or cold or fever at all. What did they prove? They proved what the science has been said was not possible, that you have direct effect on your autonomic nervous system when you learn to master your breath. I'll tell you one thing, most people aren't stressed, they aren't sick, they're just not breathing properly. So with that in mind, in through the nose, to the belly, out. You can stimulate your autonomic nervous system. You can turn on the parasympathetic nervous system when you breathe through the nose into the belly. Similarly, there was an amazing study done at Harvard with veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan that had PTSD and severe stress. And the study found that they significantly had results in a week of breathing, 1 week. And more importantly, 1 year later, they still had benefits from that breathing that they did. A year later with PTSD. And the list goes on and on. There's been about 18,000 published articles now in the last 10 years, most of them since 2010. Stress and mental health, quality of life, even with clinically diagnosed people, diagnosed with anxiety and depression, proven results. And so I'll get Gaia, if possible, to put these references in the show notes for you guys to look at later if you wish. But let's talk about the spirit of breath. We're going to do a 60-second breathing exercise if you want to give this a try. So if you want to put your pen and paper down. If you're at home as well, sit up nice and tall and relax. I want you to bring your awareness to the lower part, the lower dantian, which is right in between the first and the second energy center. I just want you to breathe into this energy center and feel the expansion of that as you inhale, and then exhale. Feel the contraction. And I want you to bring your awareness up to the second energy center. I want you to breathe in and feel the expansion of this beautiful orange light. And as you exhale, feel the contraction. And into the third one, where the solar plexus is this yellow light, breathing it in, feeling it expanding, filling up with golden light. And as you exhale, slowly feel that golden light flowing in and filling you up. Move your awareness up to your beautiful divine heart, breathing in, opening, exhaling, receiving all that love that you've been giving, coming back to you, filling you up now. And into the throat now, breathing in, expanding that beautiful sapphire blue light. And exhale one more time, bring it back in. Speaking your truth, living your truth. In to the pineal and pituitary glands, to the all-seeing eye, indigo-colored light. Exhale, filling back up. And then into the crown. Feel that portal connecting you straight to source. Exhale, pull back divine consciousness into the body and being through the crown. And then the last one, in to 20 centimeters above your head. That's it, big breath, that beautiful white light. Exhale, fill up your body and being with that light. Keep your eyes closed and relax. And remember who you are. Not just the body, not just the mind. The spiritual energy, the consciousness that is the observer of the body and the mind. The eternal embodied in temporary time. And so it is. Now when you're ready, big breath in. Exhale. And when you're ready, open up your eyes. And welcome back to the Matrix. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I said, the first thing we do when we're born is we take that beautiful breath. And the last thing we do before we leave this temporary human experience is we take our last breath. Some say that life is a series of inhales and exhales. And the more we are aware that we are aware of our breath, the more we get to live in the present moment. And so we can use breath for healing and super performance. But it's also a tool. And you know what? It's free of charge. I think it's going to cost you a lot even if you don't use it. And the coolest thing is you couldn't leave home without it even if you tried. It's always with you. That power is always with you. So the question is it a hypothesis or is it evidence? Well, that's for me to somewhat know and for you to hopefully one day find out. And I'd like to close with a story before I give a little gift to you. And the story goes like this. God, the greater organized design, creator, spirit, whatever universe you want to call it, God is having a conversation with man about the power, the wisdom, and the unconditional love of the entire multiverse. And so God asks man, hey, what should we do with the power, the wisdom, and the unconditional love of the entire multiverse? And man says, we should hide it. We should hide it at the depths of the deepest sea, for surely there they will never find it. God looked at man and said, well, one day when mankind is evolved enough, they will go there, and when they do, they will find it. Okay, said man, then we should hide it at the top of the tallest mountain, for surely there they will never find it. And God looks at man, smiles, and says, well, one day when mankind is evolved enough, they will go there, and when they do, they will find it. Oh, I don't know then, says man. And the Creator, in all its wisdom, kneels down, leans in, opens up, smiles and says, why don't we take the power, the wisdom, and the unconditional love of the entire multiverse and place it right there in the middle of themselves? For you see, one day, dear child, when mankind is evolved enough, they will go there, and when they do, they will find it. Ladies and gentlemen, that power, that love, that wisdom, it's not just in you, it is you. And your breath is your chariot to remember who you are. So thank you so much for today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And one more thing, a little gift for you guys. If you get your phone out, would anyone like to experience the breath work? Okay, so let me bring this up on the screen. If you guys can get that up on the screen for me. There's a QR code there. If you're watching at home, if you go to this QR code, we go to the next one. There we go. Can we go to the next slide? My clicker stopped working. There it is. Okay, so I created one called the Breath of Fire. It's 3 rounds, 10 minutes. If you scan this QR code, you can download the breathwork. Just send me a message. You go to Instagram, follow on Instagram. If you want to like the stuff, that's cool. And then send me a message on Instagram. Just text me the word Gaia. My team is standing by. It might be a lot of messages, but we'll get to it eventually. Just send me the message with the word Gaia, and we are going to send you a link to download an MP3, and you can start breathing right away. Okay, it's our gift to you. All of me loves all of you. It's been a privilege hanging out. Thank you so much for being who you are. Love you. Mwah. See you soon.
Gaia has the world's largest conscious media library, and with over 8,000 series, documentaries, and classes to explore, we know it can be overwhelming. So, we've created Gaia Plus. Access a world of transformation with expert guides, our brand new immersive learning experience. Join world-class experts as they guide you step by step towards personal transformation. Explore specific pathways to focus your journey and improve your life. You'll also get full access to all our workshops and events and unlock exclusive discounts off the Gaia Marketplace. Gaia Plus. Unlock your full potential.
When do you exist? You exist when the senses become alive. the mind has not always been trapped in sensory perception. Everything in all universes, all the information that have been or will be, exists already in your subconscious. Modern humanity has two souls. We live in a sort of a separative dimension. We, unfortunately, lost that other part. You look at the universe, you look at creation. What is driving the planets? The same movement you find in the planets is very similar to the movements you find in your biological functions. This is life force. Humans with hybrid perception will actually create a different materialized world. The beauty of multidimensionality, it's all there. At the same time, everything is there. You're here, you're everywhere. Everything is alive.